Why Justin Gaethje may be the first to finish Max Holloway. Recently, Dana White announced that Justin Gaethje vs Max Holloway is set for UFC 300. And this is definitely a matchup that a lot of people have been talking about for some time, and a matchup that's a really exciting one. Both Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje over the years have been known as some of the more exciting fighters in the entire UFC. And at this point, Gaethje even holds the BMF belt. But in my opinion, although I do think this could be a competitive fight and a banger, at the end of the day, I definitely do see a world where Justin Gaethje is able to finish Max Holloway. And Max is a guy who's never been dropped and of course never been finished throughout his entire UFC career so far. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy MMA, I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it. Over the years, if you asked MMA fans who are some of the more exciting fighters in the entire UFC, both Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway would be a very common answer. As both of these guys over the years have done a really nice job at being successful, getting victories over very impressive talent, but at the same time, in a win or a loss, both of these guys have been extremely entertaining. Like for example, Justin Gaethje has literally never been in a boring fight. Whether you talk about some of his more recent wins, like against Rafael Fiziev or even Michael Chandler, both of those matchups were extremely entertaining, and of course Gaethje was able to find the win in the end. But even when you look at his recent loss against Charles Oliveira, that matchup was extremely entertaining as well. And when you look at Max Holloway's recent performances, like his most recent one over the Korean Zombie, that was an extremely entertaining fight. Whether you look at some of his fights against Alexander Volkanovski in the past, although they were losses, a lot of them were very entertaining. And overall, when you're talking about two guys that are extremely entertaining and extremely talented in their own right, but putting them up against each other, of course you can expect some fireworks in this matchup between Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway. But now, before we get into my prediction for this matchup, let's look at both of these guys' games to see what they really do well out there and what makes them so effective. And let's start with Max Holloway. So over the years, Max Holloway has clearly been known as a striker. On the feet, Max is able to do a lot of different things out there. He does a really nice job at throwing at his jab, throwing his left or right straight, uppercuts, hooks, and crosses. He does a great job at switching stances at will. He can throw leg kicks at times as well, even throw head kicks at times. And the biggest thing about Max Holloway in terms of his boxing on the feet is he's more so of a volume guy. He's going to utilize his cardio and he's going to utilize his pace to have an advantage over you. As a lot of times Max isn't able to put his opponents away with one shot or even a couple shots, but he does so more so with the cardio and with the overwhelming pressure and pace that he's able to put on guys. And due to that, we've seen a ton of opponents crumble in the past as the fights have gone to the later rounds. But even besides his stand-up abilities, Max Holloway definitely has an ability to wrestle, although it isn't necessarily something he utilizes all that often. But specifically in his Yair Rodriguez matchup, we did see Holloway go to the wrestling a little bit and even have some success with it. Holloway definitely has the capability to take some guys down, and once the fight does get to the ground, he definitely also has jiu-jitsu ability in order to either find positions or submissions while he is on the ground. Although, as I mentioned before, this definitely is not a huge aspect of his game, and it's not something he's looking to utilize on most of his opponents. But overall, when you look at Max Holloway's game from top to bottom, it's pretty clear that he has a capability to do a lot of different things out there. But three things that jump out at me about Max Holloway is his stand-up game, how good it is, how technical he is, his cardio, how great his cardio is, how much he weaponizes that pace, and also his chin. Because as I mentioned before in the video, Max Holloway has not only never been finished, but he's never even been dropped in the UFC, so clearly he does have an iron chin out there. But now, let's move on to Justin Gaethje and see what he does well. So Justin Gaethje over the years, similar to Max Holloway, has definitely been known as a striker up. In terms of on the feet, Gaethje does a really nice job at occasionally throwing out jabs, but more so doing a great job at throwing a right straight, uppercuts, hooks, crosses. He specifically has a nice combo where he ends with that uppercut, which is a shot that he actually put down Michael Chandler with, and overall in terms of of his punches, Gaethje does a really nice job at being relatively technical. I don't think he gets enough credit for how technical he is, but also at the same time, he throws his shots with a ton of power. He's been able to drop and knock out a ton of opponents in the past with only his punches. But even besides his punching ability, probably the best aspect of Gaethje's game is his kicks. Gaethje does a really nice job at throwing kicks to the legs and battering his opponent's legs at will, whether he's in close or whether he's at range. And the fact that Gaethje's able to throw kicks in close as well is actually something that's very unique and something that's a huge advantage for him. And if Gaethje's able to kick out your legs and basically render one of your legs useless, it becomes that much easier for him to get to your face and land some of those power punches that he is able to throw. So overall, in terms of his stand-up game, it's pretty clear that Justin Gaethje is extremely talented in a lot of different ways, and even over the years he's gotten significantly better at this aspect, and at this point I think we're starting to see the best Justin Gaethje that we've ever seen. But besides his stand-up ability, Gaethje doesn't have all that much besides it. He does have a really nice ability to defensively wrestle, as he was a wrestler prior to making it to the UFC, but once the fight does get to the ground, Gaethje doesn't necessarily seem like he knows what he's doing. And a lot of times if he goes to the ground with a guy who's really good or even decent at jiu-jitsu or decent on the ground, it's going to be very difficult to see Justin Gaethje getting back up. But luckily for him, in this fight against Max Holloway, I don't think he's necessarily going to need to worry about that. But overall, a couple things that jump out to me personally about Justin Gaethje is how hard he throws his punches, how hard he throws his kicks, and his overall chin that he does possess. So overall, it's pretty clear that both Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway have been extremely impressive and have a lot of extremely impressive attributes to describe why. But now, a question that a lot of you may be wondering at this point is, what are my expectations? Well, in my opinion, I definitely do think this fight could be pretty competitive. I think Max Holloway has done enough throughout his career to lead me to believe that he has a real chance in this matchup against Justin Gaethje. What Holloway can do very effectively is put a pace on Gaethje, put the pressure on Gaethje, throw a lot of jabs, throw uppercuts, hooks, crosses, switch stances at will to avoid those leg kicks at times if he can, although leg kicks have definitely been something he's been struggling with in the past, and going up against Justin Gaethje is definitely not going to help that. But regardless of that, Max Holloway can do a nice job at putting up pressure and pace on Gaethje, and if he is able to do that, I do think he could have some success. But at the end of the day, my official prediction for this matchup would, unfortunately, for Max Holloway at least, be Justin Gaethje to win this matchup via TKO. And the reason why I say that is I think Justin Gaethje is eventually going to be able to find that big shot. I think he's going to start with the leg kicks, soften up Holloway's legs, limit his mobility, and eventually as the fighter does get a little bit later, maybe later in the first round or later in the fight in general, Gaethje is eventually going to be able to find one of those big shots. And obviously, as I mentioned before, Gaethje hits extremely hard, and actually when you look at the last time that Holloway moved up to 155, he went up against Dustin Poirier, and although Poirier is known to hit relatively hard, he definitely does not hit nearly as hard as Justin Gaethje. And in that fight between Holloway and Dustin Poirier, Poirier was able to crack and really hurt Holloway a couple of different times when he was able to land. So if Dustin was able to hurt Holloway, of course you would imagine that Justin Gaethje would be able to hurt Holloway even more and potentially even put him away. So that's a huge reason for why I think Gaethje could potentially be the first one to put down and put away Max Holloway. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening in this matchup, but I will say I am extremely excited to see what does. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Justin Gaethje has a chance to put away Max Holloway, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.